Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the lonely quiet of the apartment, Carlos stood still, acutely aware of the silence that enveloped the space, once filled with Melissa's vibrant presence. The front door's click signaled the beginning of his solitary week. He had just bid farewell to Melissa, watching her depart for the airport, headed for a business trip to Chicago.
7 days,
he whispered, his words barely audible. Carlos tried to shake off the unfamiliar sensation of being alone. His gaze fell upon the bowl on the entryway table, their designated key spot, as he mentally prepared himself for the coming days, just to appreciate what women go through daily. Carlos had laughed, sprawled across their bed, watching her pack. What, like wearing your clothes and painting my nails? Why not? Her eyebrow arched with that familiar challenge that always made his heart skip. Her brown hair cascaded over her shoulders as she leaned forward. You think it's easy being feminine? The skincare routine alone would break you by day 3. Come on, I shower and put on deodorant. How much more complicated can it be? Melissa's laughter had filled their bedroom. That statement right there proves my point. Look, I'm not saying parade around town in my dresses. Just try the routines. The hair, the skincare, maybe even a little makeup. Just to understand. The conversation had seemed like a joke then, but now, standing alone in their kitchen with a week of solitude ahead, Carlos found himself drawn to their bathroom, curiosity pulling him toward Melissa's side of the vanity. The collection of bottles, tubes, and compacts was overwhelming. He picked up a facial cleanser, turning it over in his hands. His normal routine involved bar soap and occasionally stealing Melissa's moisturizer when winter made his skin dry. This was an entirely different world.
How hard can it be?
He murmured, setting the cleanser down. His gaze drifted to the bedroom, where he knew Melissa's closet contained everything from professional attire to comfortable loungewear. The challenge suddenly seemed more interesting than the stack of reports waiting for him on their home office desk.
1 week,
Carlos said aloud, determination replacing his earlier uncertainty.
I can do anything for 1 week.
The first obstacle presented itself that very evening. Carlos stood in their bedroom, holding the pink satin nightgown Melissa had left hanging on the bathroom door. It was something she wore regularly, not particularly revealing, but unquestionably feminine with its lace trim and delicate straps. Carlos ran his fingers over the smooth fabric. He'd felt it against his skin countless times when holding Melissa close, but wearing it himself seemed like crossing a threshold.
It's just fabric,
he rationalized, stripping off his t-shirt and sweatpants.
Just a different shape of fabric.
The cool satin slipped over his head, cascading down his chest and torso. It hung differently on his frame than on Melissa's curves, but the sensation was immediate, a whisper of luxury against his skin, smoother than anything he typically wore to bed. Standing before the full-length mirror, Carlos hardly recognized himself. The pink complemented his olive skin tone in a way he had never considered. The nightgown hung just above his knees, the hem swaying slightly with each movement.
This is actually comfortable,
he admitted to his reflection, turning to view the nightgown from different angles. There was something freeing about the way it didn't cling or constrict like his usual boxers and t-shirt. Sleep came easier than expected that night, the satin nightgown cool against his skin as he sprawled across their bed, unconsciously occupying both his usual side and Melissa's. Morning brought the first real challenge. Carlos awoke to sunlight streaming through their bedroom window, the satin nightgown twisted around his waist. Checking his phone, he grimaced at the time. 7:30 a.m. with a virtual meeting scheduled for 9 o'clock.
Okay, skincare routine.
He mumbled, padding into the bathroom. Following Melissa's typical order, he arranged the products on the counter: cleanser, toner, serum, moisturizer, and sunscreen. The cleanser felt strange, foamier than his bar soap and scented with something floral. The toner stung slightly, making him wince. By the time he reached the serum, Carlos was already questioning his commitment to the experiment. How does she do this every single day? He wondered, carefully patting the expensive-looking liquid into his skin as he'd seen Melissa do countless times. The shower brought another decision. Melissa's raspberry shampoo and conditioner sat alongside his 3-in-1 body wash, shampoo, and conditioner combo. With a sigh, Carlos reached for the pink bottles. In for a penny. The rich lather and fruit scent filled the shower. Carlos spent far longer than usual working the products through his dark brown hair, which was just long enough to require actual styling. He'd been meaning to get it cut before Melissa left, but time had slipped away. After toweling off, Carlos confronted the next challenge. Melissa's vast array of hair products, styling cream, heat protectant, shine serum, each with its own purpose, none of which he fully understood.
Text her? No, that's admitting defeat on day one.
He muttered, selecting what looked like the most basic styling cream and working a small amount through his damp hair. The blow dryer was another matter entirely. Carlos had used it before, but never with the array of attachments Melissa seemed to rotate between. After several minutes of struggling to manage both the dryer and a round brush, he gave up, letting his hair air dry into what became an unruly mess of waves he normally would have hidden under a baseball cap. Defeated by hair care before 8:30 a.m., Carlos retreated to the closet, passing over his side completely and standing before Melissa's neatly organized section. The challenge hadn't explicitly included wearing her clothes all day, but something about completing the morning routine only to don his usual jeans and polo shirt seemed like cheating. His fingers trailed over the hangers, stopping at a blue sundress Melissa often wore around the apartment on weekends. Simple, comfortable looking, with pockets, a feature she always celebrated when showing off a new dress.
No one's going to see,
he reasoned, taking the hanger off the rack.
Just around the apartment for the virtual meeting. Camera from the shoulders up anyway.
The dress slipped over his head easier than expected, the cotton material settling against his frame. It fit differently than on Melissa, tighter across the shoulders and looser at the hips, but not uncomfortably so. Carlos smoothed the fabric down, surprised by how the color complemented his skin tone. Melissa had always said blue was his color, though he'd stuck primarily to navy in his own wardrobe. A white cardigan hung nearby, one Melissa often paired with this dress. Carlos added it, instantly appreciating how it balanced the outfit and provided a comfortable layer.
Not bad,
he admitted to his reflection, turning to see how the dress moved with him. There was something undeniably freeing about the open feeling around his legs compared to pants. The workday passed in a blur of emails and virtual meetings, the camera carefully positioned to show only his face and the white cardigan, which could have been any casual shirt. If colleagues noticed the raspberry scent wafting from his still drying hair or the slight shine from the moisturizer on his face, nobody mentioned it. By evening, Carlos had almost forgotten he was wearing Melissa's clothes until he caught his reflection while passing the hallway mirror. The man who looked back at him seemed different somehow, not just because of the blue dress and cardigan, but something in his posture, perhaps even his expression. Day 2 brought determination. The skincare routine went smoother, each product applied with growing confidence. The shower routine no longer felt foreign, the scent of raspberries becoming almost familiar. Then came the true test, Melissa's purple hair rollers. They sat in a basket on her vanity, large plastic cylinders with an intimidating number of clips and pins beside them. Every third day, Melissa would set her hair in these rollers, creating bouncy waves that lasted until the next application. Carlos picked one up, turning it in his hands. How difficult can it be? It's just rolling hair. 45 minutes later, he had his answer. 3 rollers hung precariously from tangled sections of hair. One had fallen and rolled under the bed, and his arms ached from being held above his head for so long. "This is impossible," he groaned, carefully extracting the rollers from his hair and wincing as strands came away with them. His reflection showed a disheveled mess, hair sticking out at odd angles where the rollers had been improperly placed. Grabbing his phone, Carlos nearly called Melissa before his pride stopped him. Instead, he pulled up a video tutorial, propping his phone against the bathroom mirror. "Take a small section of hair," the cheerful voice instructed. "Not too thick, or the roller won't heat properly." Carlos followed along, selecting a more reasonable portion of hair and combing it smooth before attempting to wrap it around the roller. "Secure from the bottom, rolling upward," the tutorial continued. "Then clip in place at the scalp." 3 attempts later, the first roller stayed in place. Carlos exhaled with relief, moving to the next section. By the 7th roller, he'd developed something resembling a technique. By the 15th, his arms still ached, but the process had become almost meditative. The gentle tug of hair being wrapped, the satisfying click of the clip securing the roller in place. It created a rhythm. With all rollers finally in place, Carlos surveyed his handiwork in the mirror. The purple cylinders protruded from his head in roughly even rows. According to Melissa's routine, they needed to stay in for at least an hour. "Guess I'm working from the bedroom today," he muttered, carefully making his way to the home office, acutely aware of the slight weight on his head and the way he needed to move more deliberately to keep the rollers from shifting. The hour passed, with Carlos continuously reaching up to check if the rollers were still secure. When the timer finally chimed, he returned to the bathroom, both eager and apprehensive to see the results. One by one, he removed the clips and unwound each roller, watching as sections of his brown hair fell in surprisingly defined waves. The effect was subtle but undeniable. His ordinarily straight hair now had body and movement. "Well, I'll be damned," Carlos murmured, running his fingers gently through the waves. They bounced back into shape, just as Melissa's always did after her roller routine. Pride swelled in his chest at this small victory. He'd conquered the purple rollers, arguably the most complex part of Melissa's beauty routine. The triumph carried him through the rest of the day, during which he selected a flowing beige skirt and cream-colored top from Melissa's closet, finding these easier to move in than yesterday's dress for his work-from-home tasks. By day 4, Carlos had established a routine. Wake up, skincare, shower with Melissa's products, blow dry with minimal success, select an outfit from her side of the closet. The roller technique improved dramatically after daily practice, although his arms still protested the extended overhead positioning. That evening, while wearing a comfortable green dress Melissa often lounged in, Carlos found himself opening her makeup drawer. He'd avoided this final frontier until now, intimidated by the precise application techniques he'd watched Melissa perform countless times. "Just the basics," he decided, selecting a tinted moisturizer, a neutral eyeshadow palette, and a tube of mascara. The moisturizer was straightforward enough, blending seamlessly into his skin and evening his tone. The eyeshadow proved more challenging, his attempts to recreate Melissa's blending technique resulting in uneven color distribution. After 3 attempts to correct it, Carlos accepted the slightly smudged result. Mascara was an entirely different challenge. The wand approached his eye, and every instinct told him to blink or pull away. After several near misses, he managed to coat his lashes without poking himself in the eye, an achievement that felt disproportionately satisfying. Standing back to assess the final result, Carlos was struck by the subtle transformation. The makeup wasn't dramatic. Melissa herself preferred a natural look for every day, but the slight enhancement of his features created a softness he'd never seen in his reflection before.
"I understand now,"
he said to his image, thinking of all the times he'd impatiently waited for Melissa to finish her morning routine. What had seemed excessive now revealed itself as a form of self-care and artistic expression. Day 6 arrived with an unexpected feeling: anticipation. Carlos had begun to enjoy these morning rituals, finding a meditative quality in the careful application of products, the methodical setting of rollers, the thoughtful selection of outfits. Melissa would return tomorrow. Their apartment, once eerily quiet without her, had transformed into a space of personal discovery. Carlos had navigated her daily experiences, developing not just appreciation but genuine enjoyment. He selected her favorite outfit for the day, the blue sundress with the white cardigan he'd tried on that first day. His hair, now expertly set with the purple rollers, fell in soft waves that framed his face. The minimal makeup accentuated his features without overwhelming them. Throughout the day, Carlos found himself contemplating how to share this experience with Melissa. Would she laugh, be impressed, feel validated? The challenge that began as a joke had evolved into something meaningful, a window into her daily life, and unexpectedly, into aspects of himself he'd never explored. That evening, Carlos stood in their bathroom, carefully removing makeup with the cleansing balm he'd discovered was far more effective than the facial cleanser for this purpose. As he worked the product across his skin, he realized he wasn't ready for this experiment to end completely. The sound of keys in the door sent Carlos's heart racing. He'd spent the morning restoring the apartment to its usual state, carefully returning Melissa's clothes to their proper places, arranging her skincare products in their usual order. "Carlos?" Melissa's voice called out, followed by the thump of her suitcase being set down.
"In the kitchen,"
he answered, smoothing down his own clothes, jeans and a t-shirt, his typical weekend wear. Melissa appeared in the doorway, her brown hair wind-tossed from travel, her smile bright. "God, I missed you," she said, crossing the room to wrap her arms around him. Carlos breathed in her familiar scent, holding her close.
"Missed you more. How was Chicago?"
"Productive, but exhausting," she sighed, pulling back to look at him. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Your skin looks amazing. Have you been using my products?" Heat rose to Carlos's cheeks. "Actually, about that, I took your challenge seriously." Melissa's eyebrows rose. "My challenge?" "Living like you for a week. The skincare, the hair routine. Even..." He hesitated.
"Some of your clothes."
Her expression shifted from surprise to delight. "You're kidding! The whole routine? Even the rollers?" Carlos nodded, unable to suppress a smile at her reaction.
"Especially the rollers. Those things should come with an instruction manual and a warning label."
Laughter bubbled from Melissa's throat. "Please tell me you took pictures?"
"Not a chance,"
Carlos replied, though he had in fact documented some of his more successful attempts. But I did gain a whole new appreciation for what you do every day. It's not just about looking good. It's an art form and self-care all wrapped into one. Melissa's expression softened. And here I thought you'd just ordered takeout and binge-watch sports all week. She reached up, running her fingers through his hair. Your hair does look great, though. Those waves are perfect. Pride swelled in Carlos's chest at the compliment. I may have mastered the purple rollers by day 3. Impressive, she acknowledged, stepping back to unpack a few items from her purse. So, what was your favorite part of the experiment? Besides finishing it, I mean. Carlos considered the question, thinking back over the week's discoveries. Honestly, the feeling after completing the whole routine. There's something satisfying about taking that kind of time for yourself, going through all those steps and seeing the result. That's exactly it, Melissa agreed, her eyes lighting up at being so thoroughly understood. It's not about needing any of it. It's about choosing to do something just for yourself. Carlos hesitated, then decided on honesty. I wasn't ready for it to end, actually. Melissa tilted her head, studying him with curious eyes. What do you mean? I mean... Carlos took a deep breath. Maybe this doesn't have to be just a one-week experiment. Not the clothes necessarily, at least not all the time, but some of the routines, the skincare, maybe occasional hairstyling. He paused. Would that be weird? The smile that spread across Melissa's face contained no judgment, only warmth. Carlos, if you found something that makes you feel good, why would that be weird? Besides, she added with a playful nudge, now I have someone to share hair care tips with. Relief washed over him. So, you don't think it's strange? I think, Melissa said, taking his hands in hers, that you did something most people wouldn't have the courage to do. You stepped outside your comfort zone to understand me better, and you discovered something about yourself in the process. She squeezed his hands. That's beautiful. Not strange. The tension Carlos hadn't realized he was carrying melted away. I do have one confession, though. What's that? I may have used up your favorite facial mask, the purple clay one. Melissa's laugh echoed through the kitchen. Worth it for your glowing complexion. We can get more. She leaned in, pressing a kiss to his cheek. Now, I want to hear everything, day by day, product by product. Weeks later, Carlos and Melissa settled into a new normal. Sunday evenings became their shared self-care time. Face masks applied while catching up on streaming shows, hair treatments under soft towels, nail polish occasionally making its way onto Carlos's fingers. The blue sundress and white cardigan hung now on Carlos's side of the closet, a gift from Melissa after he'd confessed it was his favorite outfit from the experiment. He wore it occasionally at home, the comfort and freedom it provided becoming a simple pleasure rather than a statement. Some mornings, Carlos would wake early to help Melissa set her rollers, his fingers now expert at creating the perfect tension and securing the clips. In return, she introduced him to new skincare techniques, both of them researching products suited to his specific needs. What had begun as a challenge to walk in her shoes had evolved into a shared journey, expanding both their definitions of self-expression and care. The purple rollers, once instruments of frustration, now represented something more, the unexpected paths that lead to deeper understanding, both of each other and themselves. On this particular Sunday evening, Carlos sat on their bathroom counter, carefully applying a clear, strengthening coat to his nails, while Melissa removed her makeup beside him. You know, she said, catching his eye in the mirror, When I suggested you try living like me for a week, I never expected it would change both our routines." Carlos smiled, blowing gently on his nails to dry the polish. "Sometimes the best discoveries happen when you're trying to understand someone else." Melissa nodded, reaching for her night cream. "And to think, it all started with those purple rollers." "Those impossible, magnificent purple rollers," Carlos agreed, watching as she began her nightly ritual, one he now understood intimately, not just as an observer, but as a participant in the small daily acts of care that made up a life shared together.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!